The following 4 Aces production is for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is highly advised.
Kicking back on this summer breeze. Welcome to Double K's Classroom. Class is officially in session. All right, and welcome to this week's edition of Double K's Classroom. Now, a lot of the information in this episode, I'm just going to pre-warn you, is a little bit dated because of the fact that I'm recording it on the Sunday prior. The result of the national championship game will have already been released. Hopefully, Alabama will have won, like I'm predicting so far. But in the end, at the end of the day, the information here is a little bit dated. So I'm going to go back to the college football playoff when we had number 3, Georgia, taking on Oklahoma, number 2, with the Heisman Trophy winning Baker Mayfield and soon to be NFL quarterback, probably Baker Mayfield, in the Rose Bowl. Georgia did some big things. They were behind big at first. I want to say Oklahoma took like a 21-10 or 21-3 lead at one point, and just was kind of pushing Georgia around. And then Georgia got their running game going with that kid Chubb and Michelle, and began to make a run at Oklahoma in their defense that they just couldn't seem to stop. So at the end of the day, in 2 overtimes, first time I believe that they've had an overtime game in the Rose Bowl, but a 2 overtime game, Georgia beats Oklahoma 54-48 in the second overtime in the Rose Bowl. So Baker Mayfield will go out of his college career without a national championship, probably without a college playoff win. But it was nice to see 4 different teams go at it, even though 2 of the teams are the same 2 teams from last year. And the next game that I'm talking about, which is Clemson, who took on Alabama in a revenge game for the 3rd time in 3 years. We see Clemson, Alabama. Now, this I like because, just like you said, we don't see many rivalries like this anymore, and it's good to see it happen in college football and the pro football, and then also with Saints, Panthers, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but also with basketball with the Warriors, Cavs. Like, we're seeing it all over the place. Repeated postseason meetings that take on a life of their own, and that was no different with this one. Only difference was that this one was the narrative that just about everybody expected, which was for Bama to just roll tide right on over Clemson and the number one Clemson squad, which really, let's be true, the only reason why Clemson is number one is because Bama lost to Auburn. And there's a lot of people that think that because Bama lost to Auburn, they shouldn't have been in there. But I think by beating Clemson, the number one team in the nation at the time, 24-6, I don't know if it necessarily exposes Clemson, because Clemson just isn't the team that they were last year. They're a damn good team, and they will be damn good again next year, but they just aren't the team last year that pushed Alabama and that challenged Alabama the past 2 years and took Alabama to the brink and beat them last year. This is a different Clemson team, and Alabama showed that, but it was same old Bama as they, like I said, roll tide right on over Clemson 24-6 in that Sugar Bowl. I believe it was Nick Saban's first Sugar Bowl win, or not first Sugar Bowl win, but in the college football playoff, his first Sugar Bowl win. But this will be, like, I believe, their third straight national championship game, as Bama, number 4, Bama takes on number 3, Georgia, in the national title game, which if Bama had won, here's the funny irony of Bama playing Georgia in the national title game. If Bama beats Auburn, Bama plays Georgia in the SEC title game. I believe if Bama beats Georgia there, Bama goes into the college football playoff number 1, but Georgia doesn't make it in. So if it wasn't for the fact that Bama lost to Auburn, I don't think Georgia sits in that spot right now, because Georgia doesn't come in as SEC champs. Bama does. And so I just don't see, like, Bama had the clout as far as their schedule and who they beat earlier, because I believe they played Ohio State this year, and they had beaten Ohio State, and Alabama had the clout as far as the schedule that I could believe them getting in despite not winning their conference championship. But I just don't think Georgia had a strong enough of a schedule to get into the college playoff, despite that we might have saw UCF. Nah, we wouldn't have saw UCF as much as they deserved it. Like I said, they finished 13-0. As much as they deserved it, no, I doubt they would have gotten in, even if Bama wins out. But here we sit, guys, with Bama taking on Georgia in the national title game. Two solid programs led by two men that are cut from the same cloth, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Saban is a former employer of Smart, so to speak. He used to coach on the Bama defensive coaching staff. He was the defensive coordinator a few years back, or 2-3 years back, and he decided to leave to take over this Georgia job, and he has rebuilt the Georgia Bulldogs program from, not necessarily they hadn't fallen out of prominence, but he definitely brought them to be a pure threat to the national title every year, and that they deserve to be in that college football playoffs. And teams like Georgia, if they don't get in, are the reason kind of why I say we need to move to a 6-team system. I think Stanford, or I think USC should have been in as a 5th or 6th team. I think you give your Power 5 conferences plus one wild card. That's how I play it out with the 6 ones. With the 16, but Nick Saban is 11-0 against his former assistants. Nobody has beaten him. Could it be because the master never truly, or the student never truly passes the master, because there's always something new that the master hasn't taught the student, or something new that the master has even learned. So I think that Nick Saban is going to be potent. I think that Nick Saban is gonna get out there, and I think that Alabama's defense is gonna do a lot of the winning of this game for them. So we'll see tomorrow night at 5 p.m. when Bama faces off against Georgia. But yeah, I hate to say it. Yeah, it sucks that you'll be listening to this on Friday, but the game's taking place tomorrow from the day I'm recording it. But hey, that's the biz of the podcast game, right? So anyway. Odds are Bama's the favorites. Bama's walking out national champions. I'm here to say on Friday night, congratulations to Bama for walking out national champs. If you don't, well, holy fucking hell. Look at that. So we're going to continue on. I'm going to go on to my lesson of the day here after a short commercial break. My lesson of the day today is about the concussion protocol in the NFL and kind of what a joke it is. I won't necessarily take up too much of your time telling you about it, but I got a little something to say. So you're listening to Double K's Classroom right here on the 4 Aces Presents Radio Network on Spreaker.com and also on iHeartRadio on Revolving Door episodes. You should be listening a little bit later on tonight to Planet of Coal, Blues Rock and Coal. He delivers a great show every time he puts on Blues Rock and Coal, so please listen in. If you're listening to this, go on ahead and listen in to Blues Rock and Coal as well. He should be live as well. So, all right, y'all. Commercial break. See you in a minute. Peace.
Hey, tune in Friday nights on Spreaker.com. 4 Aces Presents Radio for Planet of Coal or Double K's Classroom. Then you get Planet of Coal, Blues Rock and Coal, and Double K's 5th period music class. That starts at 8 p.m. Pacific, and Planet of Coal is at 9 p.m. Pacific. Appreciate it.
Tune in, folks. It's now time for Double K's Lesson of the Day.
All right, so let me start here. In the past week or so, in the past few weeks, this season, I should say, we've had, I want to say, the highest number in my recent memory of covered concussions. Now, do I believe that we've had more concussions this year in the NFL than we have in other years? Nah, I don't want to say that because bottom line is the game, to an extent, is played safer and is played with less abandon than it was years back. So do I believe there's less concussions? No, I believe there's less reported concussions. But at the end of the day, we're still seeing an enormous amount of concussions, and too often we're seeing guys get hit and getting their bell rung. I mean, who was it? Was it Carson Wentz? I forget who it was. I believe it was for the Eagles. I believe it was either for the Eagles or against the Eagles, but the kid went down, and it was for the Niners. It was with the Niners for forget which team it was against, but the defensive lineman, I believe it was Doomerville, just clobbered the dude, and like he was twitching. Oh, it was against the Texans. It was Tom Savage takes that hit, and the kid's twitching on the ground, and his arms are shaking, and it disturbs me watching stuff like that. And I don't believe he was allowed back in the game. But you have things like this weekend with the wild card weekend with Cam Newton getting his bell rung and them bringing him back into the game. And you also saw Tyrod Taylor get his bell rung. I don't believe he came back. But he got his bell rung towards the end of the game. I don't know what we need to do to stop all these concussions. I do not believe in softening up the game. Football is an inherently violent sport, and you know the risk of what you're doing to your body and to your head when you're playing. But I do believe in also trying to make the game as safe as possible as far as like correct tackling techniques. You can penalize all you want. It doesn't really do anything for the dude that just had his bell rung and may have a concussion and may never play the game again. You know, him getting the other team getting penalized is definitely a benefit to the team and definitely discourages players from taking those open shots sometimes when they have them. But I think it definitely does nothing that benefits the actual player who's now in the concussion protocol. Now, I believe that, I'm going to say it like this. I believe the protocol has its benefits because definitely having a doctor on the sidelines of these teams is good. But I think if a player is no matter how alert he is, if it is believed that he has just recently suffered a concussion, his brain shook from that hit that he just took, I'm sorry, he should not come back into the game. Period. Another shot like that and you're talking brain damage It's an inherently violent sport. Let's give in to that.